Welcome to the dark side of Craigslist. What looks like a simple ad for furniture, a missed connection, or a quick gig can hide something terrifying. Tonight, we dive into true horror stories born from ordinary posts.
I found the ad in the gigs section. It was simple. Need a house sitter for 2 weeks, just be present, no pets, no maintenance, $2,000 cash, must stay on premises. The address was for a house in a normal suburb, the kind with big, identical trees. I emailed back. I was between jobs. The money was good for just sitting around. A man named Carl replied fast. He said he and his wife were gone on a cruise. He asked if I had any problems being alone. I said no. He told me the key would be under a flower pot by the front door. He said the rules were simple. Be in the house every night from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. Don't go into the basement. The door would be locked anyway. Don't answer the door for anyone. Just watch TV, sleep, be a presence. He said he'd leave the cash in an envelope on the kitchen counter when they left. I got there on a Sunday afternoon. The house was empty. The envelope was there. 2,000 in hundreds. I put it in my bag. The house was nice. Normal furniture. Quiet. The basement door was in the hallway. It had a heavy-duty padlock on it. I tried the knob. It was locked solid. The first night was fine. I ordered pizza, watched a movie, went to bed. At about 3 a.m., I heard a sound. It was a thump. It came from below, from the basement. I sat up in bed. I listened. Nothing else. I told myself it was the house settling, an old pipe. I went back to sleep. The next night, it happened again. Thump. Then a scraping sound, like something heavy being dragged. It lasted maybe 10 seconds. Then silence. I got out of bed. I walked to the basement door. I put my ear against it. I heard breathing. Slow, even breathing on the other side of the door. Someone was down there. I stepped back. My heart was pounding. I remembered the rules. Don't go into the basement. Don't answer the door. I thought about calling the police, but what would I say? I'm house sitting and I hear breathing in a locked basement? I was just the sitter. I didn't want trouble. I didn't touch the door. I went back to my room and locked the bedroom door. I didn't sleep. In the morning, everything was quiet. I checked the basement door. The padlock was still there, still locked. I thought maybe it was a trick of the mind, sleep deprivation. The third night, I was awake, waiting. At 3:07 a.m., the thump came, then the scraping, then a new sound. A voice, a man's voice muffled by the door. He didn't sound angry or scared. He sounded tired. He said, "Hello? Is someone up there?" I didn't answer. I held my breath. The voice came again. "Please, I know you're there. I can hear the TV during the day. Can you call my brother? Tell him I'm ready to talk. Tell him I'll sign the papers." I felt cold. I walked to the door. My mouth was dry. I said, "Who are you?" There was a pause. Then he said, "My name's Carl. Who are you? Where's my wife?"
I didn't know what to say. My mind was stuck. The man on the other side of the door said his name was Carl. The man who hired me was named Carl. I had his emails on my phone. I finally said, "Carl, who hired me to house sit, is on a cruise." The man in the basement made a sound. It was half a laugh, half a cough. "A cruise? He told you that? He locked me down here 3 days ago. He took my phone, my wallet. He said he needed me to think about our disagreement, our family business. He said he'd be back." I thought about the envelope of cash. $2,000. It wasn't for house sitting. It was for guarding a prisoner, his own brother. I can't. "I can't let you out," I said. It was a stupid thing to say. "I'm not asking you to," the man said. His voice was quiet now. "Not yet. He'll be back. He checks on me. He brings water. Once a day, in the evening. He must have left right after he locked me in. You've never seen him?" "No," I said. "Just the emails." "He's smart," the brother said. "He paid you to be his witness, to tell the police you were here the whole time, that you never saw anything, never heard anything. If something happens to me, you're his alibi. You're the one who was in the house." I sat down on the floor in the hallway. I felt sick. "Listen," the brother said. "When he comes back, he'll come to the basement. He'll have to check on me, to bring water. He'll see your car. He'll know you're here. You need to leave before he comes back. Just go, now." "But the money," I said. "Forget the money," he hissed, his voice sharp against the door. "He's not on a cruise. He's just waiting for me to break, or for something else. Just go." I stood up. He was right. I grabbed my bag. I didn't even pack my things from the bedroom. I just walked out the front door. I got in my car and drove. I drove to a diner 20 miles away. I sat in a booth and drank bad coffee. I didn't know what to do. I thought about calling the police, but the brother was right. I was the alibi. I was the stranger paid to be in the house. My fingerprints were everywhere. The cash was in my bag. How would that look? I did nothing. I waited. 2 weeks passed. I watched the local news online for the town. I saw nothing. No missing person reports, no crime. On the day the gig was supposed to end, I got an email. It was from Carl. "Thank you for your services," it said. "The house is in perfect order. Hope you enjoyed your stay. Best, Carl." That was it. No other questions, no mention of his brother, nothing. A month later, I saw a small article in the digital classifieds for that town. It was in the business section. "Local family business transfers to sole ownership." The company name matched the one in Carl's email signature. The article said the previous co-owner, the brother, had decided to pursue other opportunities and sold his share. I never heard a breath from that basement again. I still have the $2,000. I've never spent a single bill. I keep it in an envelope in a drawer. Sometimes I take it out and look at it. I think about a locked door. I think about a tired voice. I think about a man who paid me to be his witness while he waited for his brother to change his mind or to die. I bought a truck from a guy in a town near the Nevada border. It was a good deal, maybe too good. A 2004 Ford Ranger. Some rust, but it ran smooth. The guy's name was Mark. He met me at a gas station. He was in a hurry. He had the title. It was signed. I gave him cash. He handed me the keys and left in a friend's car. The truck was fine for a week. Then the radio started acting up. It would turn on by itself. In the middle of the night, I'd hear static blaring from my driveway. I'd go out, turn it off. The battery would be dead in the morning. I figured it was a short, an electrical problem. I took it to a shop. The mechanic called me back. He sounded different. "You need to come down here," he said. When I got there, he was standing outside his bay. He didn't look at me. He just pointed at the truck, which was up on the lift. "I was checking the undercarriage," he said, "for rust. I found something else." I walked under the lift. He shone a flashlight up into a hollow space above the rear axle. It wasn't part of the frame. It was a box, a metal box welded to the truck's frame. It was about the size of a large shoebox. It had a small, sealed hatch on one end. "What is that?" I asked. He said, "I don't know, and I don't want to know. It's not factory. It's not for anything legal. You need to take your truck and go." "Can you cut it off?" I asked. He shook his head.
"Not here. I'm not touching it. Your bill is $70 for the diagnostic. Pay it and leave, please." I paid him. I drove the truck home. I kept looking in the rearview mirror. That box was in my head. I parked behind my apartment and got a crowbar from my trunk. I laid down on the asphalt and looked up at the box. The hatch had no visible latch. It was just a smooth metal door. I tapped it with the crowbar. It sounded hollow. I tried to pry it open. The metal was strong. I didn't have the right tools. I gave up. That night, the radio came on again. This time, it wasn't static. It was a voice, a recorded voice, broken up by pops and hisses. A man's voice. It said numbers, 14, 22, 7, 19. Then it repeated, 14, 22, 7, 19. I ran out and yanked the radio's faceplate off. It went silent. I was breathing hard. I went back inside and wrote the numbers down. They didn't mean anything to me. GPS coordinates? A code? I didn't know. 2 days later, a car pulled up next to me at a red light. It was a plain, gray sedan. The driver, a man with a short beard, rolled down his passenger window. He looked at my truck. Then he looked at me. He didn't say anything. He just stared. The light turned green. He didn't move. I drove away fast. I saw him in my mirror, still sitting at the light, watching me go. I knew then the truck wasn't a good deal. It was a problem. Mark didn't sell it to me. He passed it to me. I drove to a self-service junkyard on the edge of town. I paid the fee to use their tools. I got an angle grinder. I slid under the truck. The sparks flew. It took 20 minutes to cut the box free from the frame. I pulled it out. It was heavier than it looked. I carried it to a workbench. I used the grinder on the hatch. The metal screamed. Finally, it cut through. I pried the hatch open. The inside was lined with foam. In the center was a plastic bag. Inside the bag was a phone, a simple old flip phone, and a stack of 20 or 30 driver's licenses, all different states, all different names. But all the photos were of the same two men. One was Mark, the guy who sold me the truck. The other was the bearded man from the sedan. Under the licenses was a small leather-bound book. I opened it. It was full of handwritten notes, dates, times, license plate numbers, dollar amounts, short descriptions. Green sedan, I-15, 8K. Family minivan, US 95, 12K. The last entry was recent. It just said, Ranger sold, clean. I didn't touch anything else. I just closed the box. My hands were shaking. This wasn't a short in the radio. The phone in that box was transmitting, sending those numbers, a signal. And the men in the photos were using the truck to move something, information, or to track something. The licenses were fake. The book was a log. They weren't just going to let their mobile office drive away with some random guy. I left the box on the junkyard workbench. I got in the truck and I drove. I didn't go home. I drove to the biggest parking lot I could find, a Walmart supercenter. I left the truck there, keys in the ignition, door unlocked. I wanted someone to steal it. I took my personal stuff from the glove box. I wiped down the steering wheel and door handle with my shirt. Then I walked 10 blocks to a bus stop and went to a friend's house. I told my friend I'd sold the truck. I asked to crash for a few days. He said okay. I watched the local news. I checked online police reports. 2 days after I ditched the truck, I saw a brief story. Vehicle fire in Walmart parking lot. No photo, but the description matched my Ranger. The article said it was considered suspicious. No injuries, no arrests. I thought that was the end of it. The box was gone, the truck was burnt, I was clear. A week later, I was back at my own apartment. I was taking out the trash. There was a car parked across the street. A gray sedan. The bearded man was behind the wheel. He was just sitting there, watching my building. I ducked back inside. I called the police. I said there was a suspicious car staking out my apartment. I gave the make and plate. They said they'd send a car. I watched from my window. The sedan didn't move. 20 minutes later, a patrol car rolled down the street. It slowed near the sedan. The sedan's brake lights went off. It pulled away calmly. The patrol car didn't follow it. It just did a loop around the block and left. An hour after that, my doorbell rang. I didn't answer. I looked through the peephole. It was Mark, the guy who sold me the truck. He looked pale. He rang the bell again. Then he slid a plain white envelope under my door. He walked away fast. I waited. I listened to his footsteps go down the stairs. I picked up the envelope. It wasn't sealed. Inside was a single key, a small silver key, and a note. The note had one line, handwritten. The storage unit is paid up for 6 months. Unit B17, First State Storage. Leave it alone. That was it. No signature. Nothing. I still have the key. It's on my key ring right now. I drive past First State Storage sometimes. It's a big place with orange doors. I've never turned in. I never will. But I think about Unit B17. I think about what's inside. I think about the burned truck and the book of plates and the fact that Mark didn't want his things back. He just wanted me to know where they were and to know that he knew where I lived. The radio in my new car is just a radio. It only plays what I tell it to. But sometimes when I'm driving at night, I'll hear a pop of static, just for a second. My hands tighten on the wheel. I check my mirror. I'm just waiting to see a gray sedan, or a man with a short beard, or a pale guy named Mark asking for his key back.
I answered a missed connections ad. I know how that sounds. It was stupid. But her post was different. It wasn't flirty. It was sad. It said, "To the woman in the blue raincoat on the 7:15 p.m. bus from downtown on Tuesday, you looked so tired. You dropped a stuffed rabbit when you got off. I have it. I just want to return it. It looks important. No strings, just a kindness." I wasn't the woman, but I had lost something once, something that mattered. I knew how it felt. I clicked reply on the ad. I wrote, "I'm not her, but I hope she sees your post. It's nice to see a decent person on here." He wrote back an hour later. His name was David. He said thanks. He said the rabbit was clean but worn, like it had been loved for a long time. He said he'd keep the ad up for a few more days. We started emailing, just talking. He was normal. He worked in IT. He liked old movies. He lived in an apartment complex across town. After a week, he asked if I wanted to meet for coffee. I said okay. He was normal looking, a little quiet. He brought the rabbit in a plastic bag. He showed it to me. It was a small white rabbit. One of its black eyes was loose. It did look loved. "I feel silly carrying this around," he said, "but I can't just throw it out." "She might still come forward," I said. He shook his head. "I don't think so. The ad's been dead. I think I should just donate it or something." The coffee was fine. The talk was easy. We started dating. It was low-key. Dinner, movies at his place. He was gentle, a little distant sometimes. His apartment was very neat, almost too neat. He had a spare room he kept locked. He said it was his project room, full of computer parts and boxes. I didn't think much of it. About a month in, I was at his place. He got a phone call and stepped into the kitchen to talk. I was sitting on the couch. I dropped my pen. It rolled across the floor and under that locked door. I got on my knees to reach for it. The door wasn't flush with the carpet. There was a gap. I could see a slice of the room inside. I saw a leg of a table, and on the floor, near the wall, was a pair of shoes, women's shoes, and next to them, a blue cloth.
the color of a raincoat. My stomach went cold. I got up quickly. I sat back on the couch. David came back a minute later. He said the call was work stuff. I said I had to go. I had a headache. That night, I couldn't sleep. The blue cloth, the shoes, the rabbit, the missed connections ad that was never for the woman at all. It was bait. It was for someone like me, someone who would see a sad post and reply. I went online. I looked up the local news for the past 2 months. I searched for missing persons. There was one, a woman named Angela. She had disappeared after finishing her shift at a diner. The article said she was last seen waiting for a bus. She had a young daughter. The daughter was quoted. She said her mom always carried her lucky rabbit for her, a small white rabbit named Bun. The photo with the article was a family picture. Angela was wearing a blue jacket.
I didn't know what to do. I felt frozen. I had been in his apartment. I had drunk his coffee. He knew where I lived. I called the police tip line. I was scared. My voice shook. I told them about the ad, about the rabbit, about the locked room and the blue cloth and the shoes. I told them about the missing woman, Angela. The man on the phone took notes. He said they would look into it. He asked for David's address. I gave it. He asked for my name. I hung up. I packed a bag. I went to a motel. I turned off my phone. I just sat on the bed and stared at the wall. I waited for something to happen. 2 days later, I turned my phone back on. There were no calls, no messages. I searched the news online. Nothing new about the missing woman. I felt crazy. Had I imagined it? The blue cloth could have been anything. The shoes could have been old. A week passed. I went back to my apartment. Nothing seemed different. Maybe the police had talked to him and found nothing. Maybe I was wrong. Then, a package arrived. It had no return address. It was delivered to my apartment door. It was a small box, wrapped in brown paper. I brought it inside. I didn't open it. I just looked at it. Finally, I used scissors to cut the tape. I opened the flaps. Inside, nestled in white packing foam, was the stuffed rabbit, the small white one with the loose eye, Bun. There was no note, nothing else. My skin felt like ice. This was a message. He knew I had called. He knew I had seen, and he was telling me he could get to my door anytime he wanted. I threw the rabbit in the dumpster behind my building. I moved again a month later, a different town. I got a new phone number. I check the news from my old city sometimes. Angela is still listed as missing. No arrests, no body found. David's missed connection ad is long gone from the site. But sometimes I think about that locked room. I think about the project he was working on in there. It wasn't computer parts. I know that now. It was a story he started with a sad post and a lost rabbit. The worst part is the rabbit. I threw it away, but I see it. In my head, I see it sitting in that foam, clean but worn, loved for a long time. He didn't keep it for the woman on the bus. He kept it for himself, a trophy, and then he passed it to me to see what I would do. He's still out there. He still has that room, and I have this fear, deep in my gut, that my reply to his ad wasn't the end of his story. It was just another chapter, one where the woman in the blue raincoat finally gets replaced.
My cousin Jake and I needed furniture for our new apartment. We were broke. We spent hours on Craigslist. We found a listing for a full living room set, good condition, free, must pick up today. The address was a farmhouse about 40 miles out, the middle of nowhere, corn country. The email from the owner, a woman named Gail, was frantic. She said her husband had left her. She was moving back to her family in another state. She said if the furniture wasn't gone by sundown, she was leaving it on the curb. It was a couch, 2 chairs, and a coffee table, all for free. We borrowed a friend's truck and drove out. The farmhouse was old, paint peeling,
The front yard was just dirt and weeds. Gail answered the door. She was probably in her 50s. She looked exhausted. Her eyes were red. She pointed to the living room. "It's all there. Take it, please." The furniture was nice, better than we expected. A sturdy leather couch, big cloth chairs. The coffee table was solid wood. We started moving it. Gail didn't help. She just stood in the kitchen doorway and watched us. She smoked a cigarette. Her hands shook. As we were carrying the couch out, Jake nudged me. He nodded toward the basement door in the hallway. It was open a crack. The door was thick, with a heavy bolt on the outside. The bolt was slid back. The door wasn't locked. I didn't think much of it. We got the last chair into the truck. Gail came out onto the porch. She didn't say thank you. She just said, "You got it all, right? Everything from that room." "Yeah," I said, "all of it." "Good," she said. She dropped her cigarette and crushed it with her shoe. "Have a safe drive back." She went inside and closed the door. We got in the truck and left. Setting up the furniture in our apartment felt good. We finally had a living room. That night we ordered pizza and sat on the new couch. It was comfortable, but it had a smell. Not a bad smell, a clean smell, like strong soap or disinfectant. We figured Gail had cleaned it before we picked it up. A few nights later, Jake was out. I was alone on the couch watching TV. I dropped the remote. It slid between the seat cushion and the arm of the couch. I reached down into the gap to fish it out. My fingers touched something that wasn't stuffing. It was smooth, cold, metallic. Pulled it out. It was a ring, a man's wedding band. I held it under the lamp. He was simple, gold. On the inside of the band, an inscription was engraved. It was tiny, but I could read it. G and E, always here. Gail and E, her husband who left her. Eddie, maybe? Or Earl? I put the ring on the coffee table. I figured it must have fallen off his finger and got lost in the couch. I thought about mailing it back to Gail, but I didn't have an address. Just the old farmhouse. I decided I'd deal with it later. The next week, Jake was vacuuming. He moved one of the big cloth chairs to clean under it. He called me over. "Look at this," he said. On the underside of the chair, on the fabric, was a dark stain. It was big, about the size of a dinner plate. It was brown. It had been cleaned, but it seeped deep into the fabric. It didn't look like coffee or soda. We didn't say anything. We just looked at each other. We remembered the smell of disinfectant. We remembered Gail's shaking hands, her red eyes, the husband who left, the open basement door with the bolt on the outside. I went and got the wedding ring from the table. I showed it to Jake. I pointed to the inscription. "Always here," Jake read out loud. We looked at the stain on the chair. We looked at the heavy, solid wood coffee table. We thought about the bolt on the basement door. A bolt meant to keep something in. We didn't want the furniture anymore, but we couldn't just put it on the curb. It felt wrong. We ended up driving it to the dump. We paid the fee and threw it all into the pit. The couch, the chairs, the table. We watched it fall onto a pile of trash. I kept the ring. I don't know why. It's in a jar on my dresser. I looked up the local news for that farm county a month later. I found a small article. It was about a property dispute. A bank was foreclosing on a farm owned by a Gail Henderson. The article said her husband, Edward Henderson, had been reported missing by his brother over a year ago. He had last been seen at the farm. Gail had told authorities he left her. No charges were filed. The case was still open. The farmhouse address in the article was the one we went to. I think about that bolt on the basement door. I think about the furniture in our living room, the couch we sat on, the chair with the stain, the table where we ate pizza. Gail didn't need the furniture gone because she was moving. She needed it gone because it was evidence, and she paid us to take it away. Not with money, with free furniture. We were her cleanup crew.
We loaded it into our truck ourselves. We drove it away for her. We even disposed of it. The ring sits in that jar. Sometimes I take it out. I look at the words, always here. I think Edward Henderson never left that farm. Not all of him. Part of him was in the furniture, and part of him is in the landfill now, and the rest of him is probably still in the basement, behind a door that doesn't need a bolt anymore.
If you liked the story, subscribe and like it, and also write a comment about what topic you would like to hear about.